Just before the video begins, I want to state that I may sound a little odd. I recently got a massive block put in my mouth to realign my teeth, so I may unfortunately speak with a slight lisp here and there. You may not like it, and believe me, I definitely don't like it. But yeah, just note that if I sound kinda weird, that's why. Now let's get back into the video, shall we? Hey up everyone and welcome to the Ninja Crew channel. I'm your host Ghost Waffles and today we're going to be looking into the spooky retro game Crossbow Crusade. Crossbow Crusade was developed by Huge Pixel and published by Chili Dog Interactive, and you can find it on PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch and PC. On PlayStation it costs £3.99 or $4.99. On Xbox it costs £4.19 or $4.99. On the Switch, it costs £4.49 or $4.99, and on PC, it costs £8.28 or $10.99. Crossbow Crusade is a simple action platformer where you play as a hunter, killing hordes of ghouls and creepy creatures. To aid in doing this, you're armed with your trusty crossbow, which can be aimed upwards and left or right depending on which direction you're facing. You can also fire your arrows onto hanging, rotten corpses, I know, pleasant, or logs in order to platform onto them to cross large gaps. Immediately, I loved the game's setting and how it was able to create a creepy and even disturbing world by only using NES style pixel art. The enemies you face off against don't look scary but quite freaky, which can be a bit off-putting but in a good way. It's very clear that a lot of talent and passion went into creating both the setting and art style. The controls are very simple. You can jump, crouch, roll and of course shoot your bow. Your roll can be used to dodge things such as enemies, enemy attacks and traps. The jump is very sensitive and admittedly took me a bit to get used to, but once I got the hang of it, it was fine and I thought it actually helped when trying to aim at enemies on higher platforms. The game is split up into 4 different places, which have 3 levels, and usually a boss fight and bonus level at the very end. These places are the Garden of Forgotten Souls, the Headless Pass, the Secluded Cave and Death Castle. I was a big fan of how each of these places managed to gradually ramp up the difficulty by throwing in different enemies and adding new platforming challenges. As I've already mentioned, there's a plethora of enemies you'll be fighting against. There's small bats that will fly towards you when you get close enough and are hard to hit, zombies that pop up out of piles of dead bodies and spit out a harmful green liquid, and freaky creatures with only a mouth that cling to walls and shoot out a harmful red liquid. I love how big of a variety there is, and I thought they all had interesting attack patterns which kept the game more entertaining. Unfortunately though, I do think that there are some enemies that make the game quite unfair at times. For example, there are these red zombies that fire out these bloody red balls, which would be fine, but they can be fired from off screen, which gives you barely any time to react to dodge them, which often leads to you being hit. This was especially annoying throughout the later stages when the platforms got much shorter. There's also another enemy with a similar problem, except this time it's really small and you have to crouch down to hit it, which makes getting hit by it even harder to avoid. Fortunately, however, luck can be on your side, and sometimes you can walk past these attacks just fine, but I do still think it's a little sucky that they can hit you before the enemy has even appeared. You're given no time at all to expect these attacks, you just have to be extra cautious. On top of enemies, you'll also have traps to avoid that are scattered out throughout each of the levels, ranging from spikes that can pop up out of the ground, moving platforms and bloody buzzsaws. They don't make the game too different, but I appreciate the creativity. Something that I thought was cool was that the game contains bosses at the end of each place. You'll be having to face off against large humanoids with weird attacks and strange abilities in small arenas. Most of these were pretty cool, and I liked how each of them had unique designs and attack patterns. This also did give the game a very good excuse to have the roll move that I mentioned earlier. Unfortunately though, I do have gripes with one of the bosses, the Headless Pass's Witch. Along with having what I believe to be the dullest and most boring design out of all of the bosses, they also have the worst battle. They're able to phase in from anywhere in the arena and fires out one of 2 attacks. One of these is a fire attack which spreads massive flames to the left and right sides of the arena, and one of these is his blue burst attack where they shoot out a blue pellet that splits off into 4 different pellets. Now as I've already stated, they're able to phase in from anywhere, meaning they could totally just phase into wherever you stood, damaging you, which is completely unfair. On top of this, every time they phase in, they bring one of the most annoying enemies with them, the bat. You'll have to kill it whilst dealing with the witch's 2 attacks, and due to its very small hitbox, this can become a very annoying task. If I was to improve this, I'd probably add some sort of indicator of where the witch would phase in from, like having their outline flash in a specific place before they spawn in. I'd also think about having the witch spawn away from the player. At least have it so that they can't spawn exactly where the player is, because that'd just be straight up unfair. I would however still keep the bat, because whilst annoying, I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea, I just think it's more frustrating to get hit by it because of how unfair the witch can be when it spawns exactly where you're stood. The game isn't all that long. I managed to beat it in only one sitting in an hour, but that's not to say that the game is too easy. In fact, besides from all the unfair stuff, I think the game provides some decent challenge where it can, and to be fair, I'm kinda glad it doesn't go on for any longer than it does, because I don't really feel like there's anything else that could have been added. It ended at the perfect time in my opinion. Something I appreciated is that there were bonus levels at the end of each place after defeating the bosses. These levels see you using the spirits of the bosses you've just defeated to do things like ride through an enemy infested wasteland, descend downwards through a perilous cave filled to the brim with traps and bats, and sail across a sea of blood. Admittedly, I did just rush through these, but I still appreciated how they added a bit of much needed variety to keep the main gameplay from getting stale. Throughout the game, you can collect coins and find tickets, and if you take these to this mysterious man who appears in some of the stages, you're able to give your bow an upgrade. The upgrades admittedly don't really do much, they just increase how many arrows you can shoot out before needing to reload, but I was happy that they gave you a reason to collect the coins and scout out the tickets. The soundtrack here was also quite good. Not in the sense that it was catchy or pleasant to listen to, more so in the sense that it managed to capture the vibes of each of the stages perfectly. It consisted of brooding orchestral compositions, which I thought fit perfectly with the game's dark theming. I would show off some examples of songs I like, as I usually do in these reviews, but unfortunately I couldn't find any of these songs online. And with all that said, that wraps up my review for Crossbow Crusade. I'll be giving this game a review score of 7 out of 10. There were a lot of moments here where I actually had a lot of fun with the game, but for it to be better, I feel that a lot of aspects need to be improved. I can definitely see a lot of potential with this game, and can clearly tell that it was crafted with a lot of passion and talent, but unfortunately, things like unfair attacks from the unfair enemies, as well as the boss battle against the witch, hold me back from scoring the game any higher. If you're still here, then thanks, it's truly appreciated. If you've enjoyed the vid, then why not consider joining our community Discord server? I also just want to give a huge thanks to Silver for the awesome thumbnail art. You can find both his socials and our Discord server linked in the description of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.